There we go. Lovely. Great to see your face on my screen, Rod. How are you?
Hello, Leon. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Magic. Frank, thank you very much for agreeing to have a conversation about your understanding and your experience with the Course in Miracles. I think it's a really beautiful, very individual path in a sense. And I'd like to, I suppose if I just give you a little bit of background on the podcast.
Okay.
I've been studying A Course in Miracles in isolation for probably 27 years until during lockdown it occurred to me to do what lots and lots of other people do, which is to use Google search engine to type in A Course in Miracles.
Mm.
And once I did that, it opened up loads of avenues for me to connect with other people, which has been beautiful. So
Yes.
for all of the time that I was studying on my own, I was and am a musician, and I use my Course in Miracles understanding to kind of inform my lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I did that very surreptitiously, and I kind of did that in a way where I knew that I was speaking to the minds of people who were listening, but I'd try and present it in a very neutral way. So if somebody didn't have spirituality on their radar, they could interpret the lyrics at the level that they're at.
Correct.
And then somebody asked me to do an article for an online magazine about A Course in Miracles only in May or June of this year. And for the first time, I was presented with this idea of like, oh, I could step out and talk about A Course in Miracles without kind of concealing it in my lyrics and my music. And very shortly after that, when I said yes and things started to roll, I was standing on the doorstep here having a cup of coffee, looking at the clouds as I like to do every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I heard this very simple statement, really clear, just went, "This is just the start." And I was like, uh, wow, okay. So then the Course in Miracles podcast started really quickly, and I've been carried wonderfully in the flow, as is evident again by yourself, just being very gracious and agreeing to come on here.
Thank you.
So the format of the podcast has almost revealed itself to me as I've gone along. You know, I've been experiencing this and finding out what I'm doing as I'm doing it. And although I like to talk Course in Miracles with fellow students and teachers, also I think what's come to light is trying to tap into the universal principles that can be put into experiential practice for people. So, looking at what you do and listening to your videos, which are lovely, and for everybody watching this, I recommend the stuff with Jon Mundy as a great starting point, and your beautiful book, which I've started to dive into. I found that your journey, the way you discovered the pause that you created for yourself to become silent and for listen to the guidance to come to you, that's almost like a very universal tool that you could explain to us. But
Yes.
also, there's great value in your actual story. So I know you have no problem talking about what's passionate for you. And yeah, I'd just like to hand it over to you, Rod, and you decide how you'd like to motion through those requests for the time being.
Okay. Well, I commend you. 27 years by yourself is amazing.
Thank you.
My friend bought the course 13 different times, got mad with it. She flushed it down the toilet, drove over it with her car. It is a bear to get through. I studied it by myself for 4 years, starting in 2004.
Yeah.
And when it first came out, and I picked it up in the early 80s, I tried to read it and I thought, who wrote this thing? It makes no sense. And then I see there's no author. So I threw it out. I said, this is dumb. And so fast forward 2004, I went through a crash and burn experience, which is a way of opening up to the mysticism
Mm.
that I experienced. But I picked up that course and it would not put me down. I could not let it go. So I read most of Ken Wapnick's books, the course books, but in Bangor, Maine, we are really far north in America. So we're pretty isolated. So there's no Course in Miracles groups, and Zoom wasn't available then.
Right.
So I struggled by myself.
Yeah.
I like to think of the course as an independent self-study course. I still like going to church. I love the music and the people and the message. I love a good message. But when they start laying the guilt on me and I'm a sinner, I have a problem with that. So I pick and choose the church. So I look at the course as an augment to help me to unlearn this world and turn within and find that God and I are in fact one. In the Bible, it says, I and my Father are one. We are taught that God is outside of us in a church, and I have to go, and I was always in trouble. I was doing so many rosaries and giving so much money. I mean, it was ridiculous. And one day I just decided, this is insane.
Yeah.
God's always in a bad mood, and I've always done something wrong. So I walked out of that church and left it. But I felt an emptiness inside of me. So I was in a man-made human church. I went from Catholic to Lutheran, really enjoyed it. And I had all of the financial success, the house, the cars, the career. None of these things made me happy. And I'm sitting in this big church and I'm looking at the altar and I'm all by myself. And I said, how come I'm not happy? Why do I feel empty? God, please reveal yourself. So God doesn't come to you unless you actually invite him in. Well, I did that. And then going forward, like I said, in 2004, I went through the crash and burn. In other words, that was my entry into mysticism. And I left the human world behind and I turned all of my energy inwards. So the course now has a text, lessons, and a manual for teacher and a clarification of terms. And I read this book, and I read the book probably every other year. I do the lessons daily, every day. And I start to practice those lessons. I don't just do the theory. It's this morning I laid in bed and I said, Father, what is your will for me today? I surrender my will. And as I'm walking up the stairs to talk with you, I said, I walk with God in perfect holiness. And I am going to be a channel and let the divine speak through me. So I pushed my ego Rod self out of the way and go, I'm going to talk to you now and tell you about my experiences with the course. So to me, the course is written in a foreign language. It was written for Bill and Helen. They're research psychologists, for God's sake. That's up in the ozone.
Yeah.
Then they decided, well, the rest of humanity should read this. Well, there's a lot of double negatives in there. And the word altar, for example, I think of a white church table with a cross on it and a guy hanging there. And it means your mind. So it's written in a different interpretation, a different language, if you will. So you really need help getting through this course first time. It's really difficult. So Jon Mundy wrote a very nice book on A Course in Miracles, How to Start It. And Alan Cohen wrote a very nice book on A Course in Miracles, How to Start It. And then Ken Wapnick did a definition of terms, which I highly recommend, because I looked up that word altar. I said, I'm going crazy. It makes no sense. And I look it up. Well, it means your mind. Oh, why didn't he say that? I'm not that smart. So that's where it gets very confusing to try to read it. And the people that I've talked to usually make it like I did, do about 3 chapters and go, doesn't make sense.
Right.
You need help with this one. Excuse me. And then you also need, when you read this, is to invite the divine in to help explain it to me. So when I'm reading the lessons for the day, I just do a short meditation and come to me, just come to me. And then as I'm reading the lesson or the text, I get the little voice like you do, and it says, this is what it really means. And I go, oh, and I write that down on a piece of paper. It's a wonderful course for unlearning the world, but you have to approach it in the right manner. 27 years is impressive. And just the word real, for example, REAL, there's the ego real and the spiritual Christ real. They look identical to me, and I'm like, which real are you talking about? And why don't you capitalize when you're within Christ consciousness using Christ vision, capitalize that or italicize it to help me, the common average human, to understand this. So little things like that. But reading and joining a group is just so vital and critical to this. So unless you're really gifted, it's a bear for me.
Really good point, Rod, as well, because that was like, it's been such a huge accelerant for me. With just like we know, thoughts increase in strength when minds are joined. So, in the last 3 years since I found the people that I found on the internet and whatnot, and then in the last 3 or 4 months with the podcasts and getting to engage with people, as you rightly said in our correspondence, a couple of your really good friends in David and Carol, and people that I've now become proper friends with through the 10 or 12 that I've done so far. The opportunity to turn things over together in the moment, and then also to revisit them and to find, it makes me think about how we're told the course is a living document. And every time we come back to it with an expanded comprehension, we find something in it that we didn't see last time. And I also get that with the conversations that I've been having on the podcast. It's like to go back and revisit it, you hear something afresh in there, and that's a wonderful thing, to be able to collaborate with people and for someone to point something out in the way they see it, that because it's dusting off your interference. And I guess with the nature of abstraction in terms of the mind, where we do have those blind spots for what we can't spot in ourselves, like the course will tell us the classroom for the Holy Spirit is our relationships. And therefore, when we see in somebody else something that, to use a modern term, like triggers a feeling of discomfort in us, the mind doesn't understand inner and outer worlds. So therefore, you can use what's being triggered in someone else as an indication to something buried in your unconscious. And you can almost go, oh, thank you so much, because you always close that door very loudly and slam it. That's helped me to realize that in my behavior, I was indoctrinated as a child to be very careful and quiet, and and made to feel like there was something I had to be conditioned about, rather than to just be free to just slam a door if you want to, because you're 5 years old and you've just come in from being excited playing in the garden or something.
That's the ego's common tactic of denial and repression. So if we back up for just a minute, the Course says all learning is circular. It's like a spring. And once you've opened that door, in my book, I said, when God calls, say yes.
Yeah.
You did the same thing. You said yes. It's going to be one fun ride. Your learning is circular, and you're ascending like a hot air balloon. So your perception and your perspective are starting to change, and you're starting to integrate your learning and your vision with God. You are individualized God consciousness. You're a bright light, and what you've done is you put a body over that light, and you think that body is who you really are. And then what does the body do? And says, well, you and I are separate. I can look at you and I can see your Christ light, and I can see your heart. And as you start to live this way, you start to see God in everything. And then I step back and let God lead the way. That's what you're doing, is integrating. And God says, I created the sonship. The sonship then decided, I want to try creating without God. It's part of the growth process. My children did it. I do it, Daddy. I do it, Daddy.
Yeah.
And they want to do it. And I said, okay. And then they fall down. Well, you've done enough of this. We're at the point of saying, okay, I've had my fun. I want to integrate my life. How do I do that? And I want to integrate it with God. So I'm bringing God into this. That's your atonement. You're at the letter A. Now the next letter will be T, and then O. You got to have fun with it. But you're starting to say yes to God, and you're starting to wake up. As you learn, your vibration starts to increase, which means you're now attracting people like Jon Mundy, who you saw that podcast with, David Hoffmeister, Suzanne Giesman, some of the people that were on your show. And you're starting to get brighter. You're going from a 50-watt light bulb to a 75, and you're attracting more people, which are going to accelerate you up to 100-watt. The course is going to help you unlearn the insanity of this world. You are not a body. You are not a victim. There is no lack. You don't need to feel guilty, and you don't need to be punished. What? All that stuff that you repressed is starting to come up, and you're being cleansed by the Holy Spirit. As you do that, you start to get mystical gifts. At least I did.
Yeah.
Many of my friends did. They said, I'm starting to see things. I'm going crazy. And I said, no, you're not. You're starting to develop your third sense here. Your third eye is starting to open up. I always hear Christ in my right ear. And I know it's Christ because it's not in both ears. It's one ear, and it's very authoritative. I know it to be true. Very convincing. It's my voice, but not my thoughts. So I have an ER trauma patient. I was an ER doctor for 12 years at least.
Yeah.
Anyway, and you get such banged up people go, I don't even know where to start. And you get good at this, and Christ will start to talk to you and everybody that can hear this. As you surrender your will and say in the morning when you wake up, Father, what is your will for me today? I'm going to let you lead me. And I don't always like it. Sometimes he says, we got to clean the toilets today. I don't want to do that. But today is going to be a fun day because I'm starting off with a podcast, and then some friends are coming over. And God is always, his will for you is lesson 101. God's will for you is perfect happiness, not a little happiness, but 100% happiness, pleasure, and joy. Well, why don't you want that? So the next point I'd like to make, what you're also doing is there's two worlds. There's the world of humanity, and that's duality. So it's just think of black and white.
Yeah.
Then the world of God, which is just pure, use the color yellow, pure love. It's oneness and duality. And if I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling bad or depressed or sad, I'm in duality. So I got to stop. And the prayer that I use, it's from the Bible. It's I and my Father are one. So I just put my hand on my heart. And that means I am a divine being, which is what the Course is saying. And I'm going to recognize my Christhood, my divinity, and realign my thinking. So 180 degree, I don't have to be a victim. I don't have to be depressed. I have been given free will, choice. The word altar in the Course, as I was saying, is not a slab of white marble. It means your mind. So change your thinking. Say, I'm out of alignment with God. It's a mistake. I just made a mistake. Oops. I'm going to ask Christ to help guide me back and walk in the light of God. And then when I look at these problems, everything works out. So when you're in harmony, I'll just give you a quick example.
Please, yeah, please do.
Last week, our dishwasher went bang, and I just looked at it and I said, this has no power over me. I know this is part of the human illusion, and the ego is trying to get me to bite and get upset,
Yeah.
which then brings me further into darkness and fear.
Yeah.
And then where's the money going to come from? And then the wife gets mad. Why did you break it? No, you see it. But my wife, Jody, and I both looked at it. We smiled and shrugged our shoulders and said, this has no power over us. Jody's also a very serious course student.
Oh, wow.
So I walked out into my shop and I said, you know, God's going to take care of this for me. And I let it go. I didn't even think about it. 2 hours later, I get the voice, go to Dunnet's Appliance. And so I go talk to Jody. I said, I just got a message. We have to go to the appliance store. It's a Saturday. They happen to be open, and they're happening to have a pre-holiday sale. So $200 off the appliance. Now, all I see are chrome dishwashers. Jody wants white. Guess how many white ones there were? One. We bought it. It's being installed later today. So as you do the course and you learn to trust God and be confident that this beautiful love is what you truly are, and you let that love flow into your life, the course calls that the great raise. So I'm going to stand up. There's your heart, and we have all these beliefs over it. And the course says, just open it up and let love come out. That love is then expressed, as the Bible will call it, as the added things. I don't need to worry about my car, my dishwasher. I have everything I need. God, help me with this. And then I'm going to go and not worry about it. Everything is taken care of the more you trust and surrender your will. The more you learn to relax and disconnect from this human world of duality, the freer you become, the easier your life becomes. I need to read the book every day as constant reminder, because this egoic world is constantly assaulting me with news and problems.
Sure.
It's like, that's a dream. And it takes a great deal of vibration to look down and say, there's all these wars. We had a mass shooting here in Maine last week. And I look at both the people that were killed and the gunmen, and I say that they are cries for love. So no matter what your human eyes are showing you, it's an illusion. And then you say, whatever I see, it's always a cry for love. Help me light up. I'm at 25 watts. You're at 50, you're at 75.
Yeah.
But you learn to step back and say, I'm going to love you because you are God. You are, in fact, me. Oh, there's me appearing as you and you appearing as me. And isn't that interesting? So you learn to see with the vision of Christ the beauty of you. And if you have a lot of darkness, a lot of trauma, a lot of connection in this world, I'm going to bless you with love and hold you in light and help you to get brighter and brighter and brighter.
Yeah.
So that's what the course is doing. So it does that with lessons. And then eventually you become the light of the world. You get up to 75 watts or 100 watts. You're so bright that you become the light of the world. I mean, you're already starting to do that. It's just now it's time to jump in the pool and swim. And you've got the theory down beautifully. Okay. But now the world is saying we need help. There's darkness, there's wars, poverty. Everybody's terrified. But you're a light worker. And all of the people listening in the audience, you're light workers. And I'm going to step back and let that light shine. And I'm going to be a blessing to this world. Ultimately, that course is leading you home. You're healing yourself first, and then you're healing the quote sonship, all of humanity second. That's what you're doing. And that's the purpose of the course is I want to go home. I've had the benefit of learning meditation, and I know what it's like to go home and to walk with God in perfect holiness. And in that state, your mind is nothing but consciousness, your conscious awareness. There's no more concept of rod or a body. It's just pure white light. It's just pure love and pure peace. In the Bible, it says the peace that passes all understanding. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's where you're going. But while I'm here, I'm going to help you, and I'm going to help everybody I can. Because once you've experienced that love, you just like, I just want you to give, I want you to have that. I
Sure.
want everybody to have it. Putin, Ukrainians, I don't care. But I know once you've touched that love, you will be so happy and so content that this world is like eating dry toast. I got to do it because my body needs to keep going. But, you know, eat toast when God makes it. Well, that's really good. So anyway, I talk a lot. I'll let you chat now.
No, that's beautiful. I tell you, when I was asking you about non-specific principles for greater potential to transcend language, as I've written it down, something that you said, which I really like, a growing awareness of the complete non-humanness of God. I thought that was so beautiful. And then also, you put a great spin on I think, therefore I am, being typical of ego vocabulary.
Yeah.
And then as a counterpoint, God's version is just I am.
Correct.
No thinking. And, you know, I can relate to this experience that you so beautifully expressed from my own life, 2 or 3 occasions where I've experienced this beautiful presence of being there, but Leon wasn't there. You know, my body was blinking, or I had my eyes closed, depending on the different scenarios that it's presented itself to me. And the majesty and the beauty and the scale of what was evident to me was relative to me not being present. You know, and it's wonderful for that counterintuitive sort of realization from an ego point of view. You know, I've often said to people, imagine you've got an invitation, you're giving out invitations to a party, and on that invitation it says, this party is going to be so much better if you don't come. You know, and you send that to your ego, and your ego gets, oh, I've got an invitation, there's a party, what if I don't come? What, me? You know. So that experience to just feel the love without concepts, without symbols, without language, without existing, it's just the ultimate way to blow off the cobwebs and remove
Yes.
the interference to your awareness of love's presence. But I love
Yeah.
that, you know, a growing awareness of the complete non-humanness of God.
God is a vast, I can't even explain, there's no words for it
No,
because it's beyond words. God doesn't speak human language. God speaks one word, and that's love. And even that word love, there's 8 billion people on this planet. We all have a different definition
yeah,
of love. That means there's 8 billion different definitions of God if we use that. And
mm,
God just smiles and says, I'm more than that. And the
mm,
Course even says, we can't even go there.
yeah,
We can't, it's your limited human mind can't comprehend that.
mm,
So humanity has millions of words and millions of definitions of love, and God is one.
mm,
Humanity is duality. So what I was saying earlier, Rene Descartes in the 1500s separated mind and body
yeah,
in order to study the human body anatomically.
yeah,
He wanted separation, and that's persisted. So the egoic mind says, I think, therefore I am. So if you're doing a lot of thinking, You're in humanity.
Mhm.
Stop thinking. That is the best thing you can do in any situation. And you become the observer. So stop thinking, because God just says, I am.
Mhm.
I am everything. I am your thoughts. I am everything in this room. I'm the plants, the animals, the rocks. Okay, that's a big one. But if you're thinking and you're feeling whatever, love or good, it's you're in the ego. So you have to stop thinking. That's the most important thing you can do. You read a course passage, stop thinking and listen.
Mhm.
What does God have to say?
Mhm.
Let me, for me now, it's just so automatic. As I read it, I hear the voice explaining it to me, but it will explain it to you, the course passages. I think, therefore I am. Well, that's if you're in that mode, that's that you're in the ego mode and you're being tricked. God just says, I am. I'll share a little thing that I like to do is I say to myself, I am peace. I am. I am love. I am.
Mhm.
I am joy. I am. You see, I have I am on either side of these statements. And inside, that's me. It's like God, and this concept of Rod, and it all gets fused together. What are the thoughts of God? Peace, love, and joy, health, happiness. But the big one is peace. And so as you learn this course, you find yourself becoming more calm, less upset, and just this quiet peace, this quiet comfort all day long. In the East, they call that mindfulness. I call it practicing the presence. So just what I like to do, I don't know if I can find it, but I take a little 4x6 note card and I'll write a course lesson for the day when I was starting out. In the emergency room, you don't have time to eat or go to the bathroom. It's just go, go, go.
Mhm.
I would write the course lesson on a note card, fold it in half, and put it in my pocket.
Mhm.
So all day long in the ER, I would put my hand and constantly remind myself, I think it's lesson 93 or 98. I am as God created me.
Mhm.
Oh, isn't that beautiful? I am a divine being. I just happen to be in this body, having this creative experience. So God goes, Leon, let's have a life together. Let's co-create our life. And let's do this job of working as a tiler and being very creative. And everything's going to go smooth and easy. And isn't that fun? Versus the ego says, oh, my tools are dull and this is a problem and that problem. They're not paying. You see, which world do you want to live in?
Mhm.
So the course says, I want to live in the real world, our small case REAL, real world with the divine and walk. So for me, the divine is right here all the time, just a little in front of me. And I
Mhm.
imagine him holding a lantern for me
Mhm.
so I can see the way. So God is saying to you, you're starting out baby steps and you're now on the straight path and you're getting off the crooked paths.
Mhm.
So you're going straight back now to God. Therefore, the people you need to meet are going to be being drawn to you.
Mhm.
The events in your life are drawn to you. The world is a reflection of your thoughts.
Mhm.
God says if there appears to be an upset, it's something inside of you that's coming out.
Yeah.
You learn to forgive this thing. Oh, hush up. That's my computer. It's it's she wanted to talk to me. I'm kind of busy. I'm off. It broke my thought. It'll come back.
Yeah. That's
Um, yeah, surrendering your will. Stop thinking. That's surrendering your will. Take a moment
Mhm.
just to get quiet and listen and be at peace and just relax
Mhm.
and God will help you. So it helped me in trauma situations.
Mhm.
In my book, I wrote about a 15-year-old boy came in to the ER, and he'd fallen down, scun his knees. He just thought he tripped, not a big deal. But mom was concerned, so she brings him in. And as I'm looking at this child, I put my hand with my stethoscope, I'm listening to his heart, and the Christ voice says, the child passed out because he had a heart attack. You need to do a cardiac enzyme. Now, this is an adult test, and usually people have horrendous pain and they're sweaty, and he's laughing and having a good time. So I draw a cardiac enzyme, and my friends think Chelberg's lost it. He needs to go home. So that test should come back at 0. It came back at 3.57, which is a big heart attack.
Wow.
Now they went, oh my God, what do we do? Well, we started the rescue medicines, sent him to Children's Boston Hospital. He had a 95% closure of his left main artery. Death is going to occur very soon. That's called the Widowmaker. A 15-year-old, and it turned out the voice also says he has metabolic syndrome, a rare disease that causes your arteries to clog up. That voice you learn to trust, and that's the kind of guidance you get as you learn to step back. That's going to start happening to you and to everybody in the audience that says, I'm going to surrender now, and I'm going to trust, and I'm going to create quiet periods. I'm going to keep reading this book, but I'm going to start to apply it, which means it's so simple. It's as simple as your mind in the human world is darkness. So it's like going into your bedroom at night. Then you walk upstairs. What's the first thing you do? You hit the light switch. What happened to the darkness? It's gone. You didn't fight with it. You didn't do prayer. You didn't do affirmations and denials. You just turn the light on. That's how easy salvation is. But the ego puts up tremendous resistance and says, this guy Chelberg, he's crazy. Don't listen to him. And I'm going to prove to you that the darkness has power. But in truth, the darkness, the fear, is an illusion. It's empty. We have cancer, then we have a car accident, we're short $1 bill. Which of those would you want to have? And you'd say, oh, I want to be short $1 bill. But God says it's all illusion. God is the only power in this universe. God is the only light. I'm going to walk in and I'm going to turn on the light switch. So it's that easy. If you take your fear out of your belief system that there's a problem and you allow God into it, oh, isn't that interesting? So in the word belief, built into that word, there's the word lie. Look very carefully and go, oh, I'll share some more experiences. I had 3 different cancers: colon cancer, kidney, and testicular, all lethal. I refused to believe in the fear-based thought that these things are going to kill me. And I refused to listen to doctors. And I chose to surrender my will and invite God into this. And then I just relaxed. I said, your will be done. In all 3 cases, I had surgery. I was practical. I had surgery, take the cancer out. Then they wanted to do chemo and radiation, all that nonsense. And I said, no, I'm good. Because God says, you're done. You are healed. So I was out of there. That was in 2000. Then I got hit with a massive stroke. And that was stress induced from all the ER work. I was just working so hard. And it took out my right side, my left face, and I was paralyzed. And I was in the ER and I was thinking, no, this is not God's will for me. God's will is perfect happiness. I apply that. And I said, I intend to walk out of here tomorrow. And I invite God in, and I surrendered my thinking, which is what the Course says. Listen and see this with the vision of Christ. And the vision of Christ looks at this and says, I see nothing but light, divine light. You are healed. The next day I walked out of that hospital. They said, that is just, they were dumbfounded. They said, that is not possible. when you surrender and open up, and the Course is good at guiding you to do this, miracles happen. And the miracles always end in peace. So for me, it's like I have work to do. I'm like you. I want to share this message. I want to help people wake up, because guess what? The truth is I get it first. You get it first. Let's be honest. And and then we give it. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful way to live, because I'm divinely protected, and I have learned to disconnect from the illusions of illness. So I'm short a dollar bill or cancer. It doesn't matter. They're illusions. God is the only power in this universe, and he will come through you. And the Bible calls this the added things. The things that you need are brought to you. And then the other side of that is, when my life journey is done, I'm going to transition into that high vibration state of love. And I'll be at one with God again, fully. I will not have this little vestige of a body. Goodbye. I'm good, thank you. I'm going to lay it down, as Helen Schuckman said, I'm going to lay this down in peace and be grateful. And when I transition, I'm going to go with my eyes open, and I'm going to see God, and I will be led home. All right. So I'm sorry I've been a bit chatty, but your turn.
No need to apologize, Rod. That's just absolutely beautiful. Wow. So I've got something here. I know that lesson 49 is a big hitter for you. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. And there's something that I think I felt inclined to write down from your book, kind of word for word. So to be able to help many people with their transition from this temporary dream of separation to our true reality of light, love, and spirit. Being here in this material world is only a temporary illusion. We are still one with God in heaven, and we're only dreaming that we've left home for a while. And, you know, there's a couple of things listening to you talk there that add to that for me. One is this week there's been some contemplation around something that I was reading, and the person was saying, you know, don't what's the right word? Don't discount how intelligent the ego is in terms of, you know, it's almost like saying you've got a computer that's got an incredible capacity to do programs, and that's your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the ego is using that computer as well. It isn't using an old computer from 1980 in the cupboard outside. So therefore, it's very purposeful and inventive with its angles that it comes to you. You know, it wouldn't bother to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it wouldn't bother to say to you and I that we need to be scared of bumping into a type of tarantula, a type of spider that's common in Australia or something, but it will use what's specific to us from our past, because it's forever trying to pull our attention away from the present moment, because it doesn't want us to just abide and be still and know that I am God. So it's very, very ingenious and suspicious at worst and vicious at best, however the course to paraphrase it. And interestingly, Tam Morgan, I think, speaking on the Miracle Voices, when they did the online edition of A Course in Miracles, and they were all super excited. I mean, I use this 10, 12 times a day easily, you know, the online edition. The wonderful feature where you're trying to find something, you type a little bit in and it comes up and shows you. And she wanted to show somebody just as they fired it up and say, look how brilliant this is. And I think she literally said the very first thing she typed in there was surrender. And she was like, right, look, look. And so it's a, it'll show you how many times it's come up in the course, as I'm sure you know.
Mhm.
And she went like that, pressed the button to show whoever she was with, and it said surrender 0 comes doesn't come up in the course. And she was like, oh no, we've got a glitch, we've got a fault, we need to find out. And
Mhm.
actually the word surrender doesn't crop up in A Course in Miracles once.
Mhm.
And how interesting, because that's very prevalent in your explanations that you've just run through for us, and it's prevalent in all of our minds
Mhm.
conceptually. Surrender
Mhm.
is it's right there as a go-to kind of definition, um, and yet in A Course in Miracles we don't find it once. But how,
No, you find the word align.
right,
I align my thinking with the thoughts of God. I rest in God.
yeah. But
I
isn't that
listen to God.
characteristic of like rules of decision, where we just very gently, I think the use of the word coercion is so purposeful with the
Mhm.
Course in Miracles. The moment that if we said like surrender, as you just rightly said, align, uh, it's like almost a cheat code. So, if you said surrender, the ego is going to go, what was that, surrender? And as with rules of decision, he like very gently over those 5 or 6 steps walks us around this feeling of like we've been coerced into going, what sort of day would I like today? Oh yeah, that would be nice. How would that feel? And if I
Yes.
don't feel like that, oh, why aren't I feeling like that? Oh, maybe there's a way that I could. And it's so kind of like wonderful to steer us around. So maybe surrender, because even if my ego's listening to you talk and you go align, and I'm straight away going, oh, align, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Because maybe surrender is like the ego goes, whoa, what? Surrender what? My control, my
Yeah.
dominion.
Yeah. It's you align your thinking. I align my thinking with the thoughts of God. And what are the thoughts of God but peace, love, and joy?
Mm.
Oh, are you experiencing those thoughts now? I am personally, I'm experiencing peace. I'm very relaxed and I'm happy. So it's verbiage, and that right there is an ego trick. Surrender. Well, the Course doesn't say it. Therefore, you see how subtle it is?
Yeah.
How about rest? I rest in God.
Yeah.
What is the will of God?
Mm.
If I'm listening to the will of God, isn't that surrender? So the ego has already got its stick in there and it's stirring the pot.
Mm.
And think of a glass jar filled with water and mud, and the ego is always stirring it.
Mm.
Well, ego, stop doing that. The mud settles to the bottom and you're left with clear water.
Mm.
So you're upset because the word surrender is not even mentioned in the Course. You see, Jon Mundy calls him Sneaky Pete. My other favorite is when you read the lessons, it says every hour for 5 minutes, repeat this.
Mm.
And the end of the day, I forgot the lesson. And then I feel guilty and bad, and I'm a bad course student. You're not, you failed, you know? Well, guess what? God does not have a scoreboard. God is not keeping track of what you're doing. The idea is that I'm, to the best of my ability, going to remember this simple statement that I and my Father are one, and my Father is within me. And I'm going to align my thinking with the divine and let that divine light shine in front of me.
Mm.
So it's the light switch.
Beautiful.
Go into a dark room, turn on the light switch. How simple is salvation, says the Course. You see? Anyway, so you just gave a great example yourself that you fell down over a word,
Yeah.
and that's the ego. And he's very happy. He says, thank you, Leon. You did a great job. Go, go, go. Right? You're going, wait a second. So I asked my brother Christ to hang on a second. Asked my brother Christ to pick me up. And God says, forgive that illusion.
Mm.
Right there. All things are lessons God would have me learn.
Mm.
Oh, you got me on a single word. I tripped. I forgive myself and I forgive this illusion. You're right back to God.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Turn the light on and Sneaky Pete doesn't get to use
No,
the computer to come up with some convoluted fear that, trying to convince you has got all of the kind of characteristics that need to be listened to. If I had a fear now sitting here talking to you that I was going to fall out of an aeroplane, it's like I can just bat that one away, but there's no order of reality to illusions.
no.
So, the Sneaky Pete isn't going to use that one, but it might use something that says, I don't know, I could pick up my glass of water, spill it on the laptop, ruin my laptop, lose the recording, have to buy a new laptop. So it's very,
You go down that pathway of darkness
yeah,
and you go farther and farther away from light. And the Course says, I forgive this. It brings you right back.
yeah, beautiful.
So all day long, I practice forgiving. And sometimes I get tricked with a thought of an old memory that I dealt with. And I project that out. And I immediately stop that thought, stop thinking. And then I forgive myself and I forgive that thought, which then neutralizes that from having any rebound effect.
Mm.
You see, so that thought's going out, then the forgiveness comes and it's gone.
And forgiving a memory is a really, really powerful use of
Yes.
forgiveness,
The
as
ego
well.
hasn't forgotten a single thing.
So
And so
true.
I like to say to my ego, we dealt with that one. We're gonna let it go. And then when something goes bang in my environment, like the dishwasher, I'll look at my ego and say, is that the best you can do? Or I'll say, are you having a bad day?
Yeah.
So my ego is great for driving cars and balancing the checkbook. But all the rest of the time, I want Christ as my co-pilot.
Wow.
I want God's Christ guidance.
Yeah.
So I like my ego. It's just that he gets out of hand like an unruly child. I go, okay, sit on your hands, don't speak.
But then something I was listening to you saying this morning about from the time when you were a pilot was like when you used the scenario of or the metaphor of Christ being your pilot and you being the co-pilot, and you said, and guess what? Christ loves flying above the clouds,
Yes.
where it all feels free, and it was like so beautiful because as a musician and as somebody who needed to clear the trauma of childhood, I used music and storytelling to write an album with 14 songs, which documented somebody's journey from being consumed in egoic thoughts to finding the freedom and the liberation of connecting with Holy Spirit.
Right.
And it's called Back Above the Clouds. And, it's about that back being the purposeful return, because that's where you were anyway, before your ego altered your trajectory and made you believe that you were grounded and you couldn't fly. Whereas once you've, got past that and returned, there's a thing in the Course where it says we return as we go forwards, so that was very beautiful for me. That spoke to me in my language, as a lot of your stuff does. And I really do recommend that anybody watching this finds out more about your individual story. So I'm really grateful, Rod. I know you've got to keep your eye on the clock. Um, love to have another conversation with you at some point. I've got a whole heap of other stuff here that I've written down, which
Well, we can work on that, sure.
yeah, but
I love to talk to and help people to take the lampshades off their light. So, and if anybody wants, I have a website, drrodchelberg.com, that people can have 1 hour sessions with me.
mm,
And then, as you mentioned, my book is When
Yeah.
God Calls, Say Yes. It's about my growth as a mystic.
Mhm.
And I want to inspire people that they too, we're all mystics. We just have lampshades on us. The Course is saying, take the lampshades off and become light. And that's what you're doing, and that's what your audience is doing, because that's why they're listening to this. I'm starting to feel love. You can't help but want to give it away. And that's what you're doing. So you're a light worker, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing. And you're getting brighter and brighter. You will. So have fun with this.
Thanks. That's really lovely message.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your light, because yeah, I mean, today it's been beautiful to be able to ask you the questions directly, but you know, I've had a huge amount of joy from discovering you through Jon, and then all the stuff that you've done with other people. And I, yeah, can't recommend that enough. Can't recommend you enough.
All right. Well, have
So,
a good day. And everybody, I wish you well.
thank you,
Bye-bye.
Rod. Take care now.